All right, here are the answers to the formative assessment. Please make sure that you correct your answers, but don't just write down the correct answers. Really think about it, because you know that you're going to have this on the summative as well. This first one, you needed to pull out your slope and your rate. Remember that the rate is always the one with the x. So we're going to come over here, find our x right here, and it's the number in front. Not just 2, but a negative 2. The y-intercept is the other one. So it is 5. All right, for b, the slope, remember, is the rise over the run. So I'm going to start at this point and go up and over. You could have drawn a different one, but here I can see I'm going from 50 to 100, which is 50, and I'm going over 2. So my slope is 50 over 2, which is 25. The y-intercept is where it crosses that y-axis. So here's my y-axis. It crosses right here at 50. I was a little disappointed at how many of you got the slope wrong from the table. Remember, what we know, it's the change in y over the change in x. So on a table, what is happening here? It is going up 3. But you have to remember that change in x. What's happening to the x? It is going up 2. So my y change was 3 over my x change was 2. So it was 3 halves, or 3 halves is the same thing as 1.5. My y-intercept, remember, is the value of y when x is 0. So I have to come on my x, find 0, look down, and it's 3. You guys did a great job on this story problem. So here we can see that the Mighty T's charges 49 plus 1 per. So you knew that the slope was 1 and the y-intercept was 49. So y equals 1x plus 49. The next one is tricky though, because it says that they charge $4.50 per t-shirt, so you had the $4.50 there, but they don't have anything about an upfront cost, so the upfront cost was 0. In other words, this was a proportional relationship, so we just needed y equals 4.5x. If you put a plus 0, that's perfect. Alright, for 3a, many of you thought that this 2 was the point where it crossed. So I'm going to talk about this, the correct answer, and then what I also accepted. Here, it crosses at 3. 1, 2, 3. So that's my y-intercept. My y-intercept is 3. I highly suggest, and I said this in class, that you actually pull out the slope and the y-intercept first and then write the equation. So my y-intercept is 3. From this point, 3, I had to go up 1 and over 2. So that means my slope was 1/2. So y equals 1/2 x plus 3. However, I can completely see why you thought it was a 2. So if you thought it was a 2, I'll do this one in red, and you had the y-intercept as 2, that would have meant that you went up. If this was 2, 2 to 4 is 2, and then over 2. So 2 over 2 is 1. So I also accepted y equals 1x plus 2. For b, many of you had the plus 5 over here, that you were going up 5 every time compared to your plus 1. But then you did not translate that into the correct slope or rate. So if I'm going up 5, because remember it's the y change over the x change, and the x was going up 1 every time, and the y was going up 5 every time, so the slope would be 5 over 1, or just 5. My y-intercept, again, you look to see where x is 0. My y-intercept was -5. So my equation, y equals 5x minus 5. Okay, to graph, again, I am highly suggesting you pull out your slope or your rate first. Slope and y-intercept. So my slope, I had to come find the x, because remember the slope or the rate is the coefficient of x. Since there isn't anything there, it is 1. And my y-intercept is the other number, negative 2. So we're going to start on my y-axis at negative 2, and a slope of 1, if we're going to define that, rise over run, up 1 over 1. So we had to go up 1 over 1. So up 1 over 1, put a point, up 1 over 1, put a point, up 1 over 1, put a point, until you have a lot of points that you can use as your guide. Okay, so many of you had the table correct. It says that the initial deposit was 100, so we know we had to put 100 there, and then an additional 120 every single month. So after month 1, we had to add 20 to it, so 120, and another 20 after the second month, so 140, 160, 180, 200, so we're just counting by 20s. And 220. And so many of you had the equation correct as well, because we know that our slope, we're going up 20 each month. So our slope was 20 for each month, but we started at 100, so plus 100. And I'll talk about the graph in a second, but here, after 24 months, again, so many of you did that 20 times 24 to get to the 480, but you forgot that initial 100. So the answer is 580. Alright, the graph. The biggest problem I saw with the graph was numbering. So many of you started with 100 right here, and I tried to warn you, you can't do that. You have to number like a number line with equal intervals. So if this is my 0, I chose to number by, well, tens, but I skipped a line. So 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. Because I had to get up to 220, I almost made it, but it still is going to give me a nice graph. So I numbered, and then you start at 100. At 0, right here, at 0, we were at 100. And this is really just plotting points. At 1, we were at 120. At 2, we were at 140. 3, we're at 160. So it's just about plotting points.